Hey everyone, Tom here, and we are back for another cool episode. Today we are going to get into decluttering, and what that really means is less more. Decluttering for minimalists, maximalists, and those in between. We're going to be covering it all, regardless of how much stuff you like to have, whether you're somebody who wants to have just a little bit here and there, or you're somebody who likes to have all of your things around that make you super comfortable. Well, we are going to get into why decluttering isn't a one size fits all and how your personal style shapes your approach. So decluttering is a great thing depending on who you are, what you like, and what it is you're trying to accomplish in your room. That's really all it is. So as we do with everything here at Cerulean Bay, this will be presented in the context of tropical design. So we are going to define the extremes, what minimalism really is. We're going to get into what maximalism is. And no, we're not talking about those people who are on the verge of being hoarders. We're going to also then provide some tips because whether you're a minimalist or maximalist, both groups could use some good tips to help them declutter in instances when it comes to tropical design or for interior design, basically, regardless of the design style that you like. Whatever that design style is, you want it to pop. You want it to really showcase itself. So that means you can only include the pieces that make it work. So we're going to get into that. We'll talk about some common pitfalls and myths, things like how minimalists seem to always avoid warmth and they just love everything to be white, while maximalists can't decide on anything, so they have everything all thrown together. We've also got some tips about how to just change your mindset, how to view things differently, and then that will help you to curate what you need for your space in a different way. And it doesn't mean just throwing everything away. It doesn't mean keeping everything and just storing it away in a bunch of bins either. But when you look at your mindset, how you view particular pieces, that can help you to really decide what it is you should keep, what it is you should store away, and what it is you should really let go of. But first, what I want to do is just go ahead and open up with kind of like a scene here. We need you to just imagine something here for a minute. So just imagine it is morning time at your house and you are somebody who just doesn't like to have a lot of stuff. You really prefer the minimalist look. So imagine waking up, you've got a little bit of sunlight streaming through your windows, and it's just got some sheer white curtains in there, really nothing else. You look over at your nightstand, and it really just has a nice little table lamp on it, maybe a book that you've been reading, a glass of water, if there's nothing else there. The floor is clear. As you get up, you stand up, there's just a nice soft rug that you're standing on, and you notice that there's no piles of laundry, there's no stacks of things that have just kind of accumulated, which you've meant to put away, but you didn't get around to. Everything that you see, every object in sight has a purpose. It is where it's supposed to be. There's nothing that is visually demanding. So your mind feels light. It feels relaxed. It feels free. You know where everything is. Everything's where it belongs. There's just nothing for you to deal with. It's just you, your space, and a sense of calm, a sense of purpose, a sense of clarity. So you've got that little scene going on. Then let's switch over to a second one here. Now it's evening time, and we're going to look at it from a maximalist point of view. So now you go into a different room in your house. It's later that day, and you walk in, and it's almost like stepping into a little personal museum of your life. The walls are alive with color. You've got framed photos on bookcase shelves and maybe on a console table, maybe a few on some larger windowsills. You have some framed art, some eclectic art on the walls, maybe something arranged in kind of a cool gallery wall thing going on. You've got souvenirs from trips that make you smile, maybe gifts from family or friends that contribute to your personality that you've got out on display. And you look over to your sofa, you've got like a pattern throw where there's just a nice comfortable blanket over there, and it's got some real comfortable slouchy cushions on it. And in the air, there is a faint scent maybe of a candle that you had going the night before, or maybe just like a reed diffuser or some kind of smelly good thing that you've got plugged in somewhere, and it just smells really nice. And, you know, as you walk through this room, maybe to go fix your favorite drink, pour yourself a glass of wine, you notice that you just like your books. There's stacks of well-loved books there, and each one kind of speaks to you. Each one has its own little vibrant story to tell, and everywhere you look, it's just little sparks and flashes of inspiration and comfort. It's warm, it's cozy, it's your own little private space to relax. So there you've got two completely different scenes, and if you look at the line that separates the two, it's two different rooms. It's two completely different feelings. One is not better than the other. It's just how it makes you feel. This is your home. This is where you should be most relaxed, most calm, and you want to really emphasize that feeling and make it grow and last as long as you can. And whether that applies to just one room in your home or more than one room in your home, it's got to speak to you. It has to work for you. And this is where decluttering comes in, because whether you're a maximalist or a minimalist, you get things, you go shopping, you order stuff online, you receive gifts for your birthdays or the holidays or for whatever special event. Things come into your home. What then do you do with them? And for some people, they have to put everything out on display. For other people, it's going to go in a bin under the bed or in a closet. And again, there's really no right or wrong with this, but what you want is for all of those new incoming pieces to find their way into your life. And if there is no room in your life for it, then they keep moving right on out. And this can also apply to things that maybe you've owned for many, many years. So I just wanted you to be aware of that transition line, that again, it's two completely rooms, two different feelings. You've got to pay attention to what you feel, what maybe is missing in your current space at home, and then get on the right path to achieve that. But at the end of the day, you just need to know which one of these descriptions is you. There are some people that stand on both ends of the scale. Some are extreme minimalists and others are extreme maximalists. But most people kind of fall somewhere in the middle. You might be a blend of both, depending on what that room is, what the purpose of it is. You might have one room where you just don't want a whole lot of stuff in it, and then another one, that's your cozy spot with all kinds of things. But I think most people are familiar with the term minimalist. I think the concept of minimalism is out there. And again, it's just an awareness I think a lot of people have. So I'm going to get into some detail about it, but I think fewer people are aware of what maximalism is, because it's just not a word you really hear that often. It is a real concept. There are people who are maximalists. This does not make them hoarders. I do really want to point out that there's a huge difference between people who are maximalists and who use that design concept correctly, and those who collect way too much stuff and then keep collecting more anyway, even when the sheer volume of that stuff begins to encroach on what would be defined as a normal and everyday way of living. I mean, true hoarders, you got to admit it, they've got some issues there that need to be dealt with, because when you are collecting more and more things that are serving no purpose, they serve no visual interest, they're just there as another item, that's an issue. And it really becomes a bigger issue when living conditions start to become unsafe because you've just got too much stuff. And then, of course, you transition over into the unsanitary conditions where you see these horrible hoarding TV shows. That obviously is an issue that's separate from what we're talking about here. I mean, honestly, real hoarding is beyond the scope of the show. So we're just going to get back to decluttering and interior design. But again, I just wanted to point that out. Just because you're a maximalist and you like to have a lot of stuff, it does not mean you are a hoarder. So I'm really going to bring that point home today, because as I mentioned, maximalism, I think, is a term that a lot of people are not really familiar with. They haven't seen a lot of good examples of it, because good examples of it are hard to find. But I did come across some, and I'm going to share that as part of today's show. I'm going to have 2 links to 2 videos in the show notes. Now, both of these are about Anne Burrell. She was a celebrity chef on the Food Network channel who sadly passed away in June. She lived in Brooklyn, New York, in a really cool loft. And when, I heard of her passing, just as a side note, that was kind of hard for me, because I'm really not a fan of many people on TV or in movies. I don't know, maybe I'm just different in that respect, but I'm just not. But when it comes to cooking shows, I love a good cooking show. And on Food Network, they've got some good shows on there. I mean, some of them borderline on the silly side with all of the competition and everything. But Anne Burrell, she was just somebody who really spoke to me, not only in the way of her personality. She was just like really bubbly and out there and really didn't give a crap what people thought about her. But her food was amazing. Her cooking style was amazing. My wife and I have made a few of her recipes here at home, and they're really, really good. And she just puts it out there. Even though she's a professionally trained chef, she puts it out there in an easy way that you can make it too. It's just, there's just something about her that I really, really loved. And it's just sad that she's gone. But I mention her because there are a couple of networks that wanted to see what she did with her house. She must have been friends with some people at these shows, like with Hoda and Jenna over at the Today Show on NBC, which, to be honest, is a show I've never watched until I came across this video on YouTube after Anne passed. But they were taking a look at her loft. And so I watched it and I was like, wow, this is a really, really cool example of maximalism. Anne has a lot of stuff in her apartment. She's very colorful in her personality. She's very colorful on our walls and with everything else that she's got. And it's a loft in Brooklyn. And for anybody who's familiar with New York, when you're living in the city or, you're living in the areas of Brooklyn and similar places, a lot of apartments and lofts, they're just not big. You're dealing with older buildings. They're just kind of funky. They're small. And she's got a loft that's not big, but she did a beautiful job with it. So the first video is short. Again, it'll be in the show notes. It's about 4 minutes long. And then as a side bonus, she's actually making something in there should Hoda and Jenna ever stop by. But in there, she's making summer crostini, and it's got ricotta and prosciutto. She's got nectarines and pesto, and she's even got a little salad in there. So I've got a link to the recipe. I thought it looked like a really cool recipe. I want to make it, but I've got the recipe in there as kind of a side note because when you see her making it, you're going to want to make it too. It's just the way Anne is. And then in the second video that I've included, it's a little bit longer, but Page 6 did a piece about her as well. And I really love that one because she focuses more on her home and she gives an explanation of why she decorated the way she did. And it really, I think, is beneficial to people who have a lot of things. They know they have a lot of things. Maybe they're concerned that they have too many things and you don't live in a big place. You live in an apartment, you live in a condo, maybe in a loft or something like this. She shows you how to navigate that. And I think it's kind of an inadvertent thing because, again, she was a chef. She was not an interior designer. She just did her thing and it really, really worked. And it obviously did because she was on TV and, here they're showcasing her design style. So it must have made sense. I loved it. But the video is full of great ideas. It's full of great inspiration. She's got unique stories. She can tell you about every single thing that's in her home. And I think that's what you should be able to do too. Whether you're into a lot of things or you're not, everything should speak to you. Everything should have a story. Everything should have a purpose. And we'll get into some tips here about what to do with those things. If they don't, there are ways to look at it and kind of evaluate them. But you've got to have your own unique story to tell too. And you can tell that story through design. You can tell it through color. And again, you don't have to go maybe as extreme as Anne does in the videos that you'll see, but it really does help to drive home the point that if you like a lot of stuff and a lot of color, you can make it work. And on the other end, if you are a true minimalist and you love the use of neutrals, bold colors aren't your thing, you can do the same thing too. The end result will be the same. You have a space which speaks to you because you created it using the things you love, using the colors you love, and it tells your story. All of those pieces speak to you, and it does so in a way that you love to have family and friends over. You love to entertain. You love to share that space because you know other people will be comfortable in it too. They'll be relaxed. They'll be at ease. And that's what you want. That's what your home should be all about. So moving on here, I do really want to highlight the fact that decluttering does not mean you're just getting rid of random stuff, because it's not what it is. What it is letting go of things you truly do not need. For the things that you do choose to keep, it means deciding what you should display or what should be stored away, what can be rotated out later, because that's one of the cool things is when you do own a lot of pieces, but you don't want to have them all out on display at the same time, store them away and rotate them out. And then it's a little bit like Christmas every time when you've opened that box or that bin and you come across stuff you haven't seen in months. And you'll have new inspirations along the way. You'll have new ways to display stuff. It doesn't always have to be the same look every time those pieces come out. You'll learn how to mix it up and really just create a brand new, fresh look every time. So when it comes to tropical design, in your personal little escape, you want to have that finished look because it should connect you to either an awesome place that you visited, a wonderful tropical resort that you've stayed at, or it's your dream place that you've looked at pictures online, maybe you've read about in a book, you've seen something on a travel show on TV, and it's a place that you're dreaming to get to. Your tropical escape should always be about that. Even if you're changing things up here and there, things come and go, colors come and go, your tropical escape should still connect you to your dream tropical place. So I think to help put some further clarity around this, whether you're a minimalist or maximalist, let's just take a quick look at the definitions of these. So a minimalist is somebody who really intentionally chooses to live with fewer possessions. They prefer to have fewer distractions. They keep only what's truly useful. They keep what's really meaningful or beautiful so that time and space and energy is also a part of the focus. That's what matters most. Bare, empty spaces are part of the artwork. So it's not about being deprived. It's not about purposely being empty, having big, huge open spaces with nothing in them. It's just about purposeful simplicity. It's removing the excess things so that things like joy and purpose and function and clarity can just take off and be present. And for some people, that's in what you call the white space of your room. It's where things literally don't exist. It's just empty space, but it's white space. It's clean, it's clear, it's free. That's part of the look. So the definition of a maximalist is someone who embraces abundance. They embrace layering and expressive detail. They surround themselves with a really rich mix of colors and textures, patterns and meaningful objects. They use those things to create spaces and lifestyles that feel really vibrant, really personal, and really full of character. If you really have any white space, or as some people call it, negative space, but I don't really like that term. But if you have any empty or white space there, it's something that almost represents a void. It doesn't, there's nothing there that's contributing to the complete picture. So something is going to get placed there, and that's perfectly okay. Maximalism is not about chaos. It's not about hoarding. It's about celebrating variety and individuality, because a maximalist design is a lot harder to copy than a minimalist design where you've got a basic color palette and a few things in it. If somebody sees that, it is a design style that most people can more easily replicate. Whereas with maximalism, that's a tough one to do. The concept you can replicate, but you can't replicate every single thing that somebody else owns. So I think that really helps to define maximalism, as it's truly an individualist way of decorating. When it comes to tropical design, do you really want that space to pop? You want it to be beautiful. You want it to be relaxing and inviting. You want the specific artistic elements of your design style to really just show forth. And, you don't want a lot of visual interruption in there. And that is where clutter literally gets in the way. When you've got too many things competing for visual attention, or there are just too many unrelated things which shouldn't be there anyway, that's when decluttering really needs to happen. I mean, there's just an old saying out there, and it's true. When you see that there is just visual interruption and you can't really put your finger on it, it's super important to go and focus on every single thing in your room. Find what is causing the interruption. This is the old saying: pick up every single item in a room one at a time. Look at it. Study it. Let it speak to you. How does it make you feel? If it truly doesn't bring you joy, let it go. Whether you want to sell it, whether you want to donate it, there's only one way for it, and it's out the front door. So that is a very, very important thing to remember, is it's got to bring you joy. It's got to come alive in your hands. If it's something that you know that you can truly part with, go ahead and part with it. So now I've got a set of some tips for reducing and simplifying while making sure that you keep that joy and function in your home life. What some people can do, this might not work for everybody, but it does work for some, is you create two lists, list A and list B. On list A, you've got items that calm you and they center you. They bring you peace. They're relaxing. List B are items that energize you. They inspire you. They make you want to create something. They make you want to do something. There's maybe an action associated with it. You want to go through everything that you own and create those lists. You may have more of one than of the other. For some people, this is going to be important because you want to have a balance between the two lists, because then in your completed space, that balance is there and you don't have too much of one versus not enough of the other. For some people, maybe this doesn't matter. You don't need to create the lists. What you can do then is just take this next set of tips and one by one, start going through some things. You can use the first favorite rule. This is where you decide what to keep because you are only pulling out your favorite things. And not everything in your room can be your favorite thing. Not everything in your room is going to give you that same level of joy. So you go through your room and you start pulling out your favorite things. Put those in a bin and remove them from the space. You're not going to get rid of them. You are just removing them from the space. And then go through and do this again until you have literally gone through everything that is in the space. If something didn't make the first cut, it's probably not adding you that much joy. If those things landed in a second bin, maybe those are things then that you could store and use to rotate out later on when you feel like changing up the scene. Then if you've got a third bin or a fourth or a fifth, you probably can let those things go. I think that's just the easiest way to do it, because what you don't want to do is overthink this. You've just got to make the decision and let those things go. There's also a good tip, one that I really like. It's the one in and the one out habit. For every new thing that you get, regardless of how you got it, you bring one thing in, one thing has to go out. That way you keep a physical balanced number of things. You're preventing buildup. It doesn't affect your storage capacity. I think it's a very good way to do things, because it also, if you get this habit ingrained in your mind that if I'm buying something, I got to let go of something, it really makes you think of that purchase. Do I really want to buy it? Because everything I've got already, I really love. I don't want to have to get rid of anything. You know what? I'm just not going to buy it. It's not going to add so much value that now I have to increase the physical number of things that I own. So I think for some people, that's a good way to approach it too, is if you've got one thing coming in, one thing's got to go out. Another tip that you can use is to find your champion pieces. These are the pieces that serve more than one purpose, and you should really prioritize these. These can be things like a storage ottoman. Those provide a place for you to put your feet up, an extra bit of seating, and they provide hidden storage. Maybe you've got a beautiful big basket, something that some people would use as a hamper, but you're not using it for that. You've just got a really cool basket on display. Again, another storage space. You can put things in there. So prioritize those things. Anything that has a dual purpose. It doesn't just look cool, but you can also use it for something, or something that you are actively using. Make sure that they are placed high on the list of priorities, and those, again, are your champion pieces. Then you can also single out a particular place in your room. Maybe it's a particular shelf or a coffee table or like an entryway table or something like this, where you've got your most favorite pieces on there. It's styled the way you like it, and there is just no changing it out. That's the way you want to leave it. That is a great way to instantly separate those items out from the rest of what you have going on. You can also make that particular surface your priority surface. Because you have that means you cannot have another one in that same space. This helps you to keep the number of actual pieces of furnishings down to a minimum, because what happens for some people is they actually will go and buy additional surfaces, side tables, accent tables, whatever they are, just so you can have another surface to put more stuff out. So if you've got one place that is your priority surface and it's got your most favorite pieces on it, that's the only one that's allowed in that particular area. If it's a larger room and you obviously want things to be balanced, you can now have a secondary surface somewhere else with your secondary set of items on it. Again, you are controlling the number of surface areas you have, which then controls the number of things that can be placed. So for some people, that's a tip that might work for them. You've got your priority surface there, whatever you want to call it. It's your one specific zone, your primary zone, then you've got your secondary zone. Limit the number of surfaces that you have, and then that will help limit the number of items that are out, and you're only putting your most favorite pieces out there. Again, these tips are all about reducing the visual noise because you don't want visual competition, as we've talked about in previous episodes. You want everything to play its part. Everything has its role. Larger pieces are supported by smaller pieces so that it creates a particular vignette or a display. That's what you want. Then, of course, you've got your seasonal swap outs. If you're somebody that's into the holidays or particular times of the year which are important to you, then you can rotate things in and out appropriately. And again, don't have those things clutter. If you're going to celebrate a particular season, put the other pieces that are non-seasonal away. Keep one or two family photos out. Keep a particular cool keepsake from an awesome trip out. But anything else that was there, it can't be there plus the seasonal stuff, plus the holiday stuff. Again, it's then too much. And there's a reason why you're bringing out the seasonal stuff. You want to show it off. Why should everything else distract from it? So be very particular when you're bringing out those seasonal swap outs to put your non-seasonal things temporarily away. Then there's also another tip here where it's almost from more of a utilitarian viewpoint. You're looking at the utility of things, the functionality of things. If you have a lot of things that you use, they have an actual purpose. You want to ask yourself, does this make my daily life smoother in some way? Does it make my life easier? Is my space more uplifted because of it? If the answer is no to those questions, it's probably okay to go ahead and let it go. If it is something that you use and you don't have something else to take its place, then no, you should keep it because it's obviously something that you use. It's got a particular function. But if you've got similar items like that, or you've got other items that are useful that you don't use in your daily life, maybe you're only using now and then, maybe if you're honest with yourself, you haven't used it in the last 6 months, those are the things that can head to the front door in a donation bin, or if there's some value, you can take it upon yourself to try and sell. But again, you want to look at things also from a utilitarian point of view. What are you using? How often are you using it? Does it make sense to keep it? Do you have more than one of the same thing? Then for some people who have a lot of photos, maybe you've got bins of family photos, from the older days when everybody had their printed pictures and photos and things like that before cell phones were around and, before the digital age, basically. And you just got bins and bins and bins of family photos. I know Edna and I have that here. We've got a bedroom upstairs that's got lots of photos in it that we need to go through. And the solution there is to digitize when possible. Now, for some people, digitizing makes a lot of sense. You can turn those into really nice printed books, which take up a whole lot less space than stacks of scrapbooks or those old photo albums, which by now for a lot of people are probably 30 or 40 years old, and the little adhesive backings in there have probably yellowed and they're just nasty. But anyways, take those pictures out, salvage them if you can, get rid of those nasty old books. But digitizing is good. I would say that for some people, maybe the older crowd, where you didn't grow up with this stuff and now you've digitized it, how do you easily view it? Now it's stored away digitally somewhere. Are you going to have to open your laptop or get on your phone every time you want to look at a picture? I don't know. For some people, that's not practical. It's not useful. That's something you're going to have to decide for yourself is if you go ahead and have all of these things scanned and you've got them stored digitally, now how do you access them in a way that makes sense where you can enjoy them so they're just not forgotten, somewhere stored away on some hard drive. So yeah, think about digitizing when you can, because that's really a great way to free up space, free up clutter, and it preserves some of those older pictures. I've got some older ones that have yellowed with time, or, there's a nice picture that my mom had where she was with my grandmother, and my mom had it on a table in her bedroom for years, but the sun would come through the window. And every day that sun back in San Diego would come through, and it's faded, and I've got it still, and it's nice, but it didn't have to be as faded as it is. So yeah, the sun will ruin these kinds of photos over time, even though they're in a nice little frame. When something's digitized, then it's protected too. So yeah, so there's your tip about digitization, which is a tough word to say. Something else that you can also try too is just practice micro decluttering. And I recommend this for people for whom decluttering is not easy. It is a lot easier for me than it is for my wife. And I wouldn't say that I'm really a minimalist. I like having less rather than more, but I know what it is to have several items that I really like too, where I don't have enough room on a particular bookshelf or on a surface to display them all. And it is a bit of a challenge. Which ones do I want to put out? Which ones will I rotate later on? But for people that truly do struggle with letting things go, and it's, you're second guessing yourself as you're trying to fill that donation bin, micro decluttering is doing this. Instead of a big marathon clean out where, you're going to say, I'm going to do every closet today, or I'm spending this weekend decluttering everything. Don't do that. Take 5 minutes every day. Pick one surface, maybe pick one storage bin or just one storage thing like a storage ottoman. Take 5 or 10 minutes every day. Take everything out of it, tidy up some things, and make some quick decisions right there. Keep the most important things, but the things right away that are not bringing you joy or that you're just not that super impressed about, put it in a donation bin or box, and then make a quick trip to your favorite donation place. If it is something of value and you want to try and sell it, go ahead and list it for sale. But doing these little micro cleanouts where you're only spending 5 or 10 minutes a day on one small area, you're really now breaking up a big, huge task into smaller, manageable pieces where you're not going to feel overwhelmed. It's not going to be emotionally draining, especially again, if letting things go is hard for you. You don't want this to be an emotionally draining thing. So now that we've gone through some really good tips about how to declutter, what I want to do now is give some tips that are specifically for the minimalists out there, and then just a few more for the maximalists, because there are some tips that don't apply to both groups. So we're going to take a quick look at some of these. For the minimalists out there, when decluttering is an issue, just focus on the essentials. And again, the things that bring you joy, the things that bring you happiness. Practice the one-touch rule. When you pick something up, you either use it, you put it away, or you let it go. There are no in-between piles. There are no maybe piles. Just be forceful with yourself and say, I'm keeping it. It'll be out on display. I'm keeping it, but it'll be rotated out or it's going away. And then choose timeless things over trendy. This is where a lot of people, regardless of what design style you like, they end up getting too much stuff because they follow trends. I am not a trend follower. I don't believe in trends. I think in the world of fashion, maybe it makes sense, but in the world of home design, timeless things are what last. They last a lifetime. They last generations. Trendy things come and go, and trendy things can be very expensive. And why spend a lot of money on stuff that in a few years is going to be quote unquote out of style? And then you've got other family and friends who are really into the trendy stuff, and then they come over and your house looks dated. It looks out of style again. The whole thing to me is just crazy. That's just my opinion, but I don't follow trends. Trends can be good for inspiration. There could be something in there maybe that you really like, or, it could spark a new idea about something, but choose timeless stuff over trendy stuff, because these are pieces that will serve you for years, not just some fleeting style moments. So yeah, go timeless over trendy. Then let that negative space or that white space be a part of your design. In the minimalist world, open space means room to breathe. Open space is foundational. It is part of the overall look. Now, being a minimalist, you'll already know that. So don't let anything encroach on that. Just focus on that again And if anything starts to encroach on that space, get rid of it. So you love the open space. You love that sense of being able to breathe. That's very critical. Don't let anything get in the way of that. Then another cool tip, going back to the whole utility concept, is elevating function to an art form. This is where you're really looking at things that do have a purpose, like a really cool lamp. You've got just some really cool pieces. I use a blog post that I did about kitchen design as a great example, because when some people are trying to decorate for the kitchen, it is kind of a different space to do because you've got things in there that you physically use, like toasters and blenders and stand mixers and things like this. If they are really, really cool pieces to use, it's not just an accent, it's an accessory because you're using those things. But because they have a vintage look or they're done in a cool color, now you're using it as a decorative accent. This is the thing. Look around your space. Anything that looks really, really cool, show off its beauty by getting rid of things surrounding it. You don't want things interfering with something that can stand alone and look really cool. So again, really cool lamps, anything that's handcrafted that you can use. It can be just displayed in its own little spot. Anything like that. Elevate function to an art form. Things that you are using which look really cool, let that be a piece of art. And then, of course, there's always the fewer is better rule. If you've got a lot of things that basically do the same job, pick the nicest looking one. Get rid of the rest. Who needs 4 or 5 of something that does the same thing? You just don't. Fewer is better. Choose the well-made ones. Choose the best looking ones. Let everything else go. And then I've got one more cool tip here when it comes to color, because some people who are into minimalism still like to use a lot of color. Color will take up space. Color will add energy to a room, and it can visually start to encroach on the openness of a space if you're just using a lot of it. So I would go ahead and just restrict your color palette to 1 or 2 really good accent colors, but use your neutrals as your primary. And there's some really awesome neutrals out there. They don't all have to be boring beige. Really, when you are looking at some color palettes that include neutrals, and actually in the last issue of the Cabana Lounge, my newsletter, which just went out, I've got some cool links to some online color palette generators. The ones that I really like are the ones where you can upload a particular image and you can get all of the different hex codes in there to find your colors. That is an excellent way to develop any color palette, from the most neutral to the most bold and wild and everything in between. Use that if you're having a hard time deciding what neutrals would really speak to you. I'm not a neutrals person. I find them to be kind of lifeless and washed out if you're using too many of them. But there are some really, really good ones when you're getting into just some of the tan colors, the dustier colors, kind of like a dusty rose or a dusty blues and greens. Not the pastels. I'm not a pastel person, but there's just really, really nice neutrals there. Use one of these online tools. Upload a nice image that you like, and then get the little hex codes out of there. It lets you create your own little color palette. And as I mentioned in the newsletter, with those hex codes, you can go get paint made with them. It's the same way that they use the paint chips at the store to fill a paint can. With these hex codes, they can do the same thing. It's also a way to go look for fabrics. If you're going to be doing anything in upholstery, or, you're getting any pillows or cushions or blankets or throws or anything like this, window treatments, use the hex codes to help you get the right colors that you need for those fabrics and really for anything else. So look at your neutrals, keep your color story consistent, restrict it to some really good neutrals, and just keep your accent colors to a minimum. I think for minimalists, that's an important tip because, again, color can just be too much of something. And then moving on over here for the maximalists, I've got some good tips for you too, because I think especially if you watch those videos, the 2 that I have for Anne Burrell, where she's showing off her loft in Brooklyn, the importance here is to curate. We're not asking you to remove all of your treasures. We don't want you to strip everything clean and start over, but think of all of the things that you own as kind of like a book that you wrote, a really cool novel that you wrote, or it's a long paper of some sort. All of those things are edited. Everything that you want to say, earns its place, and then all of the non-important stuff gets edited out. Treat your personal treasures the same way. Curate them. Just keep the best pieces, even if there's a lot of them. Keep those. And then as you're displaying them, store some, rotate them out seasonally or whenever you need to get some change. Keep your look fresh, but you're not losing your beloved collection because some of it is just in storage. Another thing that you can do too is create intentional groups of things. Groups of items in interior design are called a vignette, and it's where you just have one particular little scene. And you can create many of these in your home. And what's cool about vignettes is they all have their own little boundaries. And in between each grouping or vignette, there's a little bit of a blank space before you get to the next one. And this is important because your eye needs a place to rest. As you're looking around a room and there's a lot of stuff in it, if everything is properly organized and displayed, you're going to have breaks between that bookcase and the next surface and the dining room table. And then over there's the bookcase by the couch. But as you're moving across the room over to the bookcase, there's empty space on the floor where maybe there's a cool rug there. And then there's maybe just a nice plant or something. But it's not stuff next to stuff next to stuff next to stuff. Your eye needs to rest. It's just one of those things that the eye does. And when you go into a room with a lot of stuff, it's your eye telling you there's just too much stuff. You still need to have those defining little spaces. There still needs to be boundaries, because if there's just too much, now you're into the world of clutter and there's just too many things in there. So create some intentional little groups, give your eye a place to take a break in between, and you're going to love it. Now, one thing that's cool with maximalism is your statement pieces still do the talking. They're the primary pieces that people are looking at, like a big print in wall art. Maybe you've got a really cool chair, an awesome tropical plant that just takes its space against a wall or in a corner, but around it you've got smaller items. Those are the ones that should only include your favorites, and they should mean something. They should help tell the story with that plant, with a particular bold chair, with that piece of wall art. It should all create a vignette. Again, there's that word. It should all create a vignette. And then anything beyond that, when you just have other little things in there, which you're using just to fill space, those are filler pieces. That's the stuff that really, in my opinion, should go into a donation bin. But if those filler pieces really speak to you and they still bring you joy, put them in the storage bin, rotate them out later. Just don't put it all out on display. Then when it comes to colors, and you'll see this in the YouTube videos, which I just thought, again, gave some great examples. Think of color as belonging in different families. You've got your color palettes. Not every color palette is jammed together with the next one. You don't have every color under the sun being used in the same place. So you can create unified looks by using specific color palettes in certain little areas, in each little vignette even. It will help to give the feeling that everything is very connected, but it won't be chaotic. There'll be visual cohesion. There's boundaries. Again, there's that little visual space as you move from one color palette of things over to the next one. Keep those little boundaries in there. And then there's something here where if you're still kind of struggling and you just feel that you've got too much out there, this is a really good tip that I think, well, maybe it applies to everybody, is you just ask yourself this question. If I had to move tomorrow, which pieces would I be the most devastated to lose? What are the pieces that I just have to take with me? And what could be left behind? And I think some people are actually forced into this when it comes to moving. If you have to move, and you suddenly find yourself without a large window of time, and you've got a lot of packing to do, or things are just moving quickly for whatever reason, now what are you going to do? Yeah, you can hire people in to come and pack every single thing you own, and you're going to pay top dollar now to move every single thing you own, only to get to your new place, unpack it, and realize, why did I pay to move this? I'm not really into this anymore, or we should have given all this away. Do this whether you're moving or not. Just ask yourself, what pieces would I be most devastated to lose? Keep those and get rid of the rest. For me, that's kind of an easy thing to do because, again, I can let things go pretty easily. I've got my few sentimental pieces that I'm very attached to, but the rest of it, I don't know. I'm just like, okay, so it's gone. Later on, I can get some other cool stuff. I don't know. But if you're one of those that struggles and you can't let go of things, just try that. If you had to move tomorrow, what could you just absolutely not live without? So I hope those tips have helped those of you in the maximalist world. I know I presented a lot of info in here, but hopefully these were some good, valuable tips. And I hope today's episode has been helpful for you. But then, as I mentioned, go into the show notes, and that's where you're going to find the 2 links to the videos. One is about 4 minutes long, and one is about 13 minutes long. You'll see Anne Burrell's loft in Brooklyn, New York. God rest her soul. And I've got her recipe actually for the crostini that she did because it's easy, it's quick, and it just looks so amazing. So I'm going to start sharing more recipes, not only from her, but from other people as well, because that's been something that I've wanted to do for a while, just to kind of bring some added fun to the show and to the YouTube channel. And, for people that are into cooking and into tropical entertaining, there's just a lot of fun out there. And so the things that I come across, I want to share with you guys. So for those of you that do need some help with any tropical design projects that you might be working on, just know that I am available for coaching calls. I've got the Tropical Self-Discovery Assessment available for you to take if you've got some questions and you're not sure about yourself and your lifestyle and the current space that you have. Rather than paying top dollar for an interior designer to come in and ask you these same questions, you can get the same questions in there for only $29. So it's a pretty heavy duty series of questions that you'll go through, but at the end, you're going to know exactly where you stand about what you like and what you don't like, what's possible and what's not possible for the personal space that you have. And then if you want to continue on, I've got the Tropical Home Transformation Guide in there. I've still got the deal going where you can get $100 off. There is a coupon code in there, so check that out. It is kind of like a big ebook with a lot of things in there to make you think about what would work in your own tropical space, but it's the basics of interior design with a heavy focus on tropical styling. So check that out. Definitely well worth the investment. You're going to save yourself a lot of money compared to what you're going to pay for the pros to come in. And especially if you're a DIY person, you've just saved yourself thousands, and who doesn't want to do that? So yeah, I'd love to see you in tropical design at home. Go ahead and sign up for the Cabana Lounge. I've got that link in the notes as well. And tune in next week because we're going to get into the world of AI. And I've got some opinions to share about that, about how it works in interior design and more importantly, how it is not working in interior design. But I will share that next week. So until then, I wish you an awesome week full of health and happiness and a lot of tropical inspiration. Take care, everyone. We'll meet up again soon. Bye-bye.